Here we have some duck giblets, the hearts, livers, and gizzards, that have been sitting in a 5% brine solution overnight in the refrigerator, anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. And I'm just going to drain them through a nice large colander or a china cap and run some cold tap water just right over the top of them, give them a little shake and rinse them off. And I'm just going to hang them in the sink to allow them to drip dry. In the meantime, I'm going to start a pan over high heat, adding a little canola oil and some julienne onions, a little bit of sliced shallots, and I'm going to toss these around and start the roasting process. Now, this is going to be my flavor base that's later going to add flavor and dimension to my duck pate. Next, I'm going to add in just a nice little sprinkling of kosher salt to help drop the moisture, a nice little pinch of sugar to help the caramelization process get jump-started, and here's about a half a lobe of foie gras chopped into chunks. Now, this is optional, but the foie is going to melt down and give it a really good flavor. A little bit of sliced ginger that's been peeled and sliced, and a big pat of butter. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss this together over high heat, let the butter melt and get to know the foie. The foie fat's going to release out into the pan. I'm going to roast up the shallots, ginger, and onions and get them all nice and caramely and roasted. Next, you want to add in some heavy cream right on top of your roasting onions and shallots and ginger. And this is going to bring the whole mixture together. See how there's a bunch of fat that's floating right there on top? The cream, when it comes to a simmer, is going to emulsify that fat into one cohesive mixture. So stir it around a little bit with a whisk, put it over a high flame, and keep on whisking until it comes up to a simmer. Now, at this point, I've been cooking the mixture for about 3.5 to 4 minutes. And it's come together and it's nice and emulsified. So the next step, you want to place this mixture into a blender and try not to make this mess that I'm making here. And you want to blend it on high, basically making a nice creamy onion foie smoothie, which kind of sounds weird, but it goes really great with pate mix. So you're going to crank it up, start it on low, turn it all the way up to high. And you can tell by the vortex, see how that vortex hole is nice and small? That will tell you the thickness of your blending mixture. The larger the hole, the thinner the mixture. So the smaller the hole, the thicker the mixture. Go ahead and turn it off. And then next you're going to add your giblets to your food processor. You're going to simply place on the lid, make sure it's locked in place. And you want to grind the giblets together just by themselves for about 15 to 30 seconds until they start to form their own sort of paste. Once that paste is formed, you want to take your cream mixture straight from the blender, nice and hot, and pour it directly into your food processor while you're grinding the giblets. And this is going to form a sort of pate batter. Now, I also like to add 2 eggs at the ratio of 2 eggs for every container full of the food processor that I do. And that's just going to give me added protein and structure, and it's going to hold my pate together a lot better. Now, when you take off the lid, you'll notice a couple of bubbles popping up here and there. Now, that's a good sign because that means it's nice and emulsified. You're going to pour it out into a tamise with a bowl underneath it to catch it and start the straining process. Now, passing your pate batter through a tamise is a really important step to get that nice, smooth texture in your end product. But first, you're going to set that aside and finish grinding the rest of your giblets, adding in the heavy cream mixture that you made before, adding in 2 whole eggs per container full of the food processor. And then you're going to pass the whole thing through the tamise, scraping it through using a rubber hand spatula. Now, you see this stuff that's not scraping through on the top. That's tendons and connective tissue that if they end up in your pate, it's going to give you a really bad texture and flavor. You want a nice, smooth pate. So you want to make sure you're scraping off all that batter on the bottom side, and anything on the top side that's within the tamise itself, you're just simply going to discard. Next, it's time to do some simple calculations based upon the total protein weight or the duck innard weight. And so here I'm weighing out 0.2% sodium nitrite, 2% kosher salt by weight, and just a little sprinkling of freshly ground white pepper, simply there because, hey, I like it in my pate. Mix all your salt and seasoning ingredients together. Disperse them into your pate batter, your pate mix, and mix them thoroughly using a rubber spatula, making sure to scrape down the sides as you go. Next, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and this does vary per oven, and then line a tureen mold with plastic wrap And you're going to press that plastic wrap down into the terrine mold, making sure there's no spaces of air in between the mold itself and the plastic. And you're going to fill that plastic lined terrine mold with your pate batter pretty much all the way to the top. Next, you're going to fold in one side of the plastic wrap and see how I'm folding it in back, and I'm pressing out the air bubbles. And this is going to give you a better even cooking terrine. Next, you're going to fold in the other side, going to cut off the ends. And once you fold in the ends, you're going to then take a piece of tin foil. Here I'm folding in half just to make it fit a little bit easier. And I'm going to tent the terrine mold with it. And this is an important step because you want an air gap between the top of the pate mixture and the tin foil itself, forming a tent, because there's going to be steam that collects inside of there. And it's going to give you a nice buffer to make sure that the terrine cooks gently and evenly. And then if this buffer wasn't there, it could scorch on the top and brown, which is going to ruin your texture and your overall flavor. Next, put the prepared terrine into a hotel pan or any oven-safe pan that can hold water. You want to pour in some hot water and close up that oven, and you're going to bake for an hour and a half at your preset temp of 350 degrees. When you're done, you're going to remove it, set it on your countertop, take off the foil, and this is what it should look like. See how it's set up nice and firm, and you're pressing it, and it's nice and bouncy. It shouldn't be wobbly or fluid. Next, you're going to place it onto a sheet pan, and here you can tell that the pate hasn't actually souffled up over the edge of the terrine mold, so I'm going to put in spacers, and then just cut from cardboard boxes. And this is going to allow me to press a weight directly on top of the pate mixture itself while it's cooling down. So after I put those spacers in, I'm going to place a sheet pan right on top, put a couple of heavy bricks or a couple of heavy number 10 cans, and weight that and place it in my walk-in overnight and allow it to cool gently. Now the next day I'm going to pull it out, I'm going to double check my texture, and after it's cooled overnight you can tell that it's going to be nice and firm and sliceable. Now again, the whole purpose of a terrine or a nice pate is that it's firm and sliceable and spreadable at the same time. You're going to turn it out using the plastic wrap to kind of tug on and pull to release it from the terrine mold. And here you have your beautiful finished pate that's ready to serve. Now again, as you see, when I slice into it, it holds together in one piece, but when I scrape my knife across, it's spreadable like butter, and that's exactly the texture you're looking for. Now to serve it, here's how I like to serve it. It's nice and simple, a little bit of frisee, little pickled red onions into the mixing bowl. That's a nice little bite. A little bit of our house-made sherry shallot vinaigrette, some fleur de sel, and that's about it. I'm just going to toss it around, and this salad is made to basically cut through the richness and the hearty flavor of the pate itself. So I'm going to place that onto one end of a skateboard. I'm going to cut 3 slices of my pate, and between each slice, I'm going to wipe my knife on a damp towel to make sure I'm getting a clean slice and a clean edge every single time. Then next, I'm going to place some crostinis from our house-made sourdough bread on the plate, garnish with a little bit of cara orange. Any orange will do, but cara is in season right now, and it's a beautiful orange with a duck or pate or charcuterie. Dress the pate with a little bit of good truffle oil. Season it with a little bit of fleur de sel. Now, once you're done plating, you want to make sure you re-wrap the pate log properly by tightly wrapping it in plastic wrap, and see how I'm pressing out all the air on the sides. That way it doesn't oxidize. And there it is, your plated finished pate that's ready to be served with a great glass of champagne or